Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a word you might be hearing a lot more lately: stagflation. It's an economic outcome so bad it can lead to years of struggle or even the collapse of entire systems.
So let's dive into this economic mystery. Because, on the surface, when you look at the official numbers, everything seems, pretty okay. Inflation is down from its peak, unemployment looks low, and yet beneath it all, alarms are quietly being sounded. Alright, so first things first. Before we can even start looking for clues, we kind of need to understand what we're looking for. Let's define this economic boogeyman itself. Stagflation, as you can see, is this really toxic mix of slow growth, high unemployment, and stubborn inflation all hitting at the same time. Now, none of these are good on their own, right? But put them together and you get a worst-case scenario, mainly because each problem makes the others incredibly hard to solve. And this slide just lays it all out perfectly. This is the core dilemma. See, the standard medicine for inflation is to raise interest rates to kind of cool the economy down. But the treatment for slow growth, for stagnation, is the exact opposite. You lower rates to heat things up. You're basically trapped between a rock and a hard place. So, let's move on to the first big clue in our mystery. And that's the idea that the numbers themselves, they might not be telling us the whole story.
The official story goes something like this. The Federal Reserve has two jobs, basically: keep people employed and keep prices stable. And if you just look at these numbers, you'd think, hey, they're doing okay. Which of course makes all this growing concern from economists really puzzling.
But then, this happened. Nearly 1 million. That's how many phantom jobs were recently wiped off the books in the largest job revision ever in the US. When you have a correction that massive, it kind of makes you question how solid the rest of the employment numbers really are.
And it's not just about the numbers being wrong. It's about what the official data doesn't even show you. For instance, you're counted as employed if you worked just 1 hour in a week. And the official inflation number doesn't always capture shrinkflation. We've all seen that, right? Your bag of chips has more air in it, but the price is the same. Or what about housing costs, which often feel like they're from another planet compared to the official statistics?
Okay, our next clue is that the economic growth we are seeing, it seems to be standing on a very, very wobbly foundation.
On paper, GDP growth looks pretty good, but when you peel back the layers, you see it's really being propped up by just a few key things. A massive amount of government spending, a sort of speculative boom in AI, and of course, consumer spending. If any one of those pillars starts to weaken, the whole structure gets unstable fast. And that consumer spending part? Get this. A full 50% of all of it is now being driven by just the top 10% of households.
This creates a huge vulnerability. It means the economy is incredibly dependent on a pretty small group of high-income earners continuing to spend. If that group decides to pull back, the effect on the wider economy could be huge, especially since the other 90% of the population already has less to spend.
All right, now we get to the real heart of the mystery, where the very people who are supposed to be steering the economy, they seem to be actively working against each other.
And this really shows the core conflict. On one side, you've got the central bank, the Fed, trying to slam on the brakes by raising interest rates to fight inflation. But on the other side, you have the government's policy hitting the gas with tax cuts and record spending.
Normally, you need these two to be working together. But right now, it's exactly like this quote says: one hand is fighting the other. This lack of coordination makes it nearly impossible to untie that stagflation knot. They're basically playing two different songs at the exact same time.
So you might be thinking, okay, this is a US conflict. Why does it matter to the rest of the world? Well, it turns out the stakes are incredibly high for everyone.
And the answer really lies in the unique and incredibly powerful role the United States plays in the entire global financial system.
The US dollar is, for all intents and purposes, the world's default currency. So many countries and businesses use it for trade, to store their wealth. Its stability is absolutely critical for the whole global economy. It's the bedrock of the entire system.
And believe me, other nations are noticing the strain. If confidence in the dollar starts to fall because of all these domestic policy battles and a growing deficit, the shockwaves will be felt worldwide. And we're already seeing some governments hedging their bets, quietly shifting their reserves away from US bonds and into other things, like gold.
And that's really the key takeaway here. This isn't just some theoretical economic puzzle for experts to debate. It's a question with very real consequences for household budgets, not just in the US, but all around the globe. It's a mystery we all have a very real stake in solving.